Following that breaking news in the NBA, where Oklahoma City Thunder rookie Chet Holmgren will miss the entire upcoming season because of a Lisfranc injury in his right foot. You see it there during the summer games. The number 2 overall pick suffered that injury playing in Jamal Crawford's Pro-Am in Seattle over the weekend. Something popular of a lot of the guys in the league this summer. We've seen LeBron James play, and then recently, of course, Chet Holmgren there. Thunder General Manager Sam Presti released a statement this morning saying, in part, one of the things that most impressed us during the process of selecting Chet was his determination and focus. We expect the same tenacity will carry him through this process or period of time as we work together to support him through his rehabilitation. Join us now, of course, he had to pull over for this news, Adam Finkelstein, and you think about it, your number 2 overall pick, missing this upcoming season, a big part to the Thunder moving forward in its franchise. Your reaction to that news?
Well, obviously it's disappointing for Chet. I mean, I think that the thing you're going to hear from everybody is, oh, this is what we were worried about. But I think a little bit of context is really important with that because, you know, while Chet's frame and how skinny he is was a concern for teams, he's also a player who never had a significant history of injuries. So this is somewhat unprecedented in terms of a year-long injury. There was a lot of speculation about just how that narrow frame would yield itself to the NBA, but this happened in a Pro-Am charity pickup game. Obviously, it was LeBron James who came down on his foot, but I, for one, am not as concerned about the long-term ramifications from this. We've seen plenty of examples. Joel Embiid is the first that comes to mind that really struggled with building up his body and getting the physicality right. And I think in the long run, if he has a year, not just to rehab, but also to focus exclusively on his body, there may actually be some silver lining here. So while it's disappointing in the short term, I don't think it does much to tamper the long-term expectations of the prospect that I thought had the highest upside in the most recent NBA draft.
We see those numbers there from Gonzaga, almost nearly averaging a double-double his time there out west with the Bulldogs here. But of course, missing out this year, how does that maybe set back the Thunder in their process of kind of welcoming into the NBA as well as this franchise?
Well, to be honest with you, I think from the Thunder standpoint, it's not necessarily all bad news because it is a race to try and get the top pick in next year's draft with Victor Wembanyama becoming eligible. And he is widely perceived as a generational type talent. You see teams, not just like OKC, but also the Spurs, who are definitely tanking and being kind of unapologetically so. So in terms of, increasing the likelihood that they'll have a shot of getting the number 1 pick in next year's draft, again, there is a silver lining to this. So it's going to be very interesting to see, of course, how the ping pong balls fall in that lottery and who gets that number 1 pick. But I go back to the fact that there are silver linings both for the Thunder long-term as well as for Chet's long-term development.
If we're looking at the Thunder into the future, as you mentioned, they're built for the future here. Looking at the holes of the team, this maybe wasn't a year that they were going to contend. But the outlook for them, knowing that they're not going to have that number 2 overall pick, where do you see them pegging so far?
Well, I think in terms of the long-term potential of the organization, Sam Presti has staffed almost a record-setting number of NBA draft picks in the future years. He and Danny Ainge do that as well as anybody in NBA front offices. They are acquiring young assets. They're trying to figure out exactly which ones are going to project out long-term. They've got a number of talented young players now, but they're going to continue to add them, and they're going to be in a position to make deals. So whether it's through the draft, it's going to be very interesting. I think most immediately you're going to see them target that number 1 pick. In the event that they don't get the number 1 pick in the 2023 draft, you may see them start to look at their assets and be more active in the trade market and try and upgrade their roster in that front more so than through the draft. So one thing is undeniable, though, is that Sam Presti has done a masterful job of acquiring assets, draft picks, to give him the maximum amount of flexibility in long-term roster management, arguably, than anybody in the league right now.
We'll see how that pans out over there for the Thunder. By the way, Adam Finkelstein, appreciate your time. This breaking news there with Chet Holmgren out for the season with that Lisfranc injury. Will not be able to suit up for 2022. The number 2 overall pick, as you see it there, to that draft board. But as Adam kind of mentioned, they are building for the future when it comes to those picks. They do have others in the future, I think all the way to 2026. Not going to contend this year, but they are building something there out west in OKC.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.